look, deeper cuts, and it looks better. So when you're training the abs, you basically just need to train it like every other muscle. I will go 10 to 20 reps per set with around 12 to 20 sets per week. If you can do more, that's great. If you want to do them once a week, 20 sets a week, that's fine, but optimally hit them twice a week, or reduce the volume per session and hit it more frequently, maybe every day or every second day. The most important thing is the weekly sets here. That's what we're manipulating, that's the volume. Now, when I am training abs, I will choose one exercise to overload and target the rectus abdominis, which is the six pack. Now, I use this ab crunch pad for that. This is my favorite. You can get them on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. Basically, it allows you to get a big stretch and you can get a great squeeze. You can use weights to overload and increase resistance, but this is a killer for the entire midsection. If you want to choose one exercise, go with the ab crunch mat. Then I'll add in a hanging leg raise variation, working a little bit more on my obliques and core strength stability. And finally, I will do some vacuum work. Now, this allows me to have greater control of my midsection, pulling it in with the illusion of a tighter waist. So you cannot really shrink your waist, but if you can work the TVA, which is the muscle behind your abs, like it's like a belt, if you can work that, that can bring everything in a little bit. So the way that I train that is through vacuums. I will vacuum the house daily, all day until my house is spotless and there literally isn't a bit of dust in your house. If there's still dust in your house, you can have a fat waist for the rest of your life. Have fun with that. No, seriously though, this I do vacuum. So the way that you do a vacuum is that you breathe all your air out, and then you're gonna suck in when you have no air left, and you're gonna try to bring your belly button to your spine. Just hold it. You might only hold it for 2 seconds, that's fine. Relax, have a breath, breathe out again, hold. You're gonna keep doing that on and off. So obviously you're gonna run out of breath here. That's why we do it in little intervals. That's why you might have a couple seconds where you're catching your breath, then you'll go again. But I'll do that for around 3 minutes. 3 minutes, 5 minutes a day. Honestly, do that as much as you like. You can do that throughout the whole day if you want. Just the better you can get at really squeezing it in, the easier it is. So if you're struggling with this, you're gonna do it with the easiest possible variation, which is on the floor when gravity's on your side and you're just gonna be lying on your back and pulling your midsection to the floor. The next step from this might be on your knees, kneeling, leaning up against something, and finally doing it standing. So if you can't do it standing, don't worry about it. If you wanna make this a little bit easier, it's gonna be easier the lower your body fat is. So when I'm dieting, I do it all the time because it means I have less resistance. There's less weight that I have to actually tighten. So if you have a bit of weight on you, these are gonna be harder. It's the way it is, so start maybe on the floor doing them. Again, if you have a full stomach, it's gonna be hard because you're pulling in everything. So if you wanna make these easy, first thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, start with the floor and then progress to standing. So this isn't really gonna shrink your waist, but if you know how to do this, it's gonna give that look. It's gonna give that illusion that you're kind of pulling everything in. Especially when you get leaner, you can tense your abs, and then you can also do this little extra tense where it kind of brings your waist in. It's quite cool. Now, I don't like to overdo obliques. I feel like if you wanna build that muscle, then fine, add in some oblique work, but me personally, I don't really want large obliques, so I tend to just train the six pack, the rectus abdominis. Now that is basically it in terms of abs. Now we're gonna move into cardio, and basically cardio in the world of fat loss. Cardio is a tool used to increase the amount of energy you burn. The more calories you burn relative to what you eat, the more fat you burn. So this will allow you to reveal the abs without needing to restrict your calories too much. Leaning up against something, and finally doing it standing. So if you can't do it standing, don't worry about it. So the way that you do a vacuum is that you breathe all your air out, and then you're gonna suck in when you have no air left, and you're gonna try to bring your belly button to your spine. Just hold it. You might only hold it for 2 seconds, that's fine. Relax, have a breath, breathe out again, hold. You're gonna keep doing that on and off. So obviously you're gonna run out of breath here. That's why we do it in little intervals. That's why you might have a couple seconds where you're catching your breath, then you'll go again. But I'll do that for around 3 minutes. 3 minutes, 5 minutes a day. Honestly, do that as much as you like. You can do that throughout the whole day if you want. Just the better you can get at really squeezing it in, the easier it is. So if you're struggling with this, you're gonna do it with the easiest possible variation, which is on the floor when gravity's on your side and you're just gonna be lying on your back and pulling your midsection to the floor. The next step from this might be on your knees, kneeling, leaning up against something, and finally doing it standing. So if you can't do it standing, don't worry about it. If you wanna make this a little bit easier, it's gonna be easier the lower your body fat is. So when I'm dieting, I do it all the time because it means I have less resistance. There's less weight that I have to actually tighten. So if you have a bit of weight on you, these are gonna be harder. It's the way it is, so start maybe on the floor doing them. Again, if you have a full stomach, it's gonna be hard because you're pulling in everything. So if you wanna make these easy, first thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, start with the floor and then progress to standing. So this isn't really gonna shrink your waist, but if you know how to do this, it's gonna give that look. It's gonna give that illusion that you're kind of pulling everything in. Especially when you get leaner, you can tense your abs, and then you can also do this little extra tense where it kind of brings your waist in. It's quite cool. Now, I don't like to overdo obliques. I feel like if you wanna build that muscle, then fine, add in some oblique work, but me personally, I don't really want large obliques, so I tend to just train the six pack, the rectus abdominis. Now that is basically it in terms of abs. Now we're gonna move into cardio, and basically cardio in the world of fat loss. Cardio is a tool used to increase the amount of energy you burn. The more calories you burn relative to what you eat, the more fat you burn. So this will allow you to reveal the abs without needing to restrict your calories too much. In other words, the more calories you burn, the more food you can still eat during a dieting phase. And this doesn't mean you can just go for a run and eat 5,000 calories worth of shit, but it means that you can have more food to fuel your body and your workouts better and basically get in more nutrients. So this is a better end of the spectrum, is eating more and burning more as opposed to burning less and then eating less. When it comes to the type of cardio you do, that is entirely up to you. Just know that all cardio is not created equal, and you'll burn more calories doing something more demanding, like a stepper, sprint, or an incline walk, as opposed to walking outside on the flat. So when I'm just starting a fat loss phase, I'll do my cardio outside. It's very easy, probably 20 minutes, a few times a week, and then increase the duration and also the intensity. Wind, good. Completely fuck up my audio, yes. The deeper I get into a cut, the harder my cardio will get. So with that said, let's talk about a few tricks that I use to make my cardio more enjoyable and easier. So the first trick that I like to do when I'm doing cardio is what I like to call crossing the chasm. Now, if you've done business school or anything, you'd be like, hang on, isn't that to do with product development? And yeah, it is. But basically what it is, it's like getting past that point that just sucks. So if you're doing cardio, you think, okay, the first 10, 15 minutes is pure hell. If you can get past that, you can keep going. So instead of thinking to yourself, oh, I've got 30 minutes, I've got 40 minutes of this to get through, it's gonna feel terrible. Just set yourself a little challenge. Let's get through that first bit. Let's just get through 15 or 20 minutes. Then reassess. If you get through that 15, 20 minutes and you're still hating life and this is the worst thing ever, then I'd just say get off. Go do something else. You're clearly not ready to do the cardio yet. I mean, it's not that much of a big deal. You can do it later. I mean, if you're really not feeling it, fine, listen to your body. But for the most part, it's usually that first bit that just sucks. Get through that and the rest will be a lot easier. Now my next tip is to change it up. We're gonna shock the mind here. So shocking the body was so like 20 years ago. We're gonna shock the mind. Now what I do is when I'm doing really hard cardio, let's say, I mean, when I say really hard, I basically mean anything that's more challenging than walking outside on a flat, okay? So maybe like incline treadmill walking, Stairmaster, bike, whatever it is. One thing I found when I'm doing this is that I will get used to whatever I'm doing. My body and my mind will adapt immediately. So let's say I'm doing walking at 12% incline, so it's like medium, and about 5 kilometers an hour, okay? So let's say I'm doing that. In the beginning, it'll feel fine. I'm like, this is easy, this is fine. Then all of a sudden, I'll be like, this is starting to get hard. That's my new point of reference for what's challenging, because I start to feel, oh, my legs feel a bit heavy, this is a bit difficult, whatever. So as soon as that happens, when I start feeling like, oh shit, this is a bit difficult, I actually make it harder. Now this is like, seems counterintuitive because you're like, hang on, but if you're feeling like it's difficult, why would you make it more difficult? And that's purely the reason, is because you can kind of create a new reference point of what's actually difficult, right? So what I'll do is I'll do intervals. Now I'll go a minute of regular, so say 5 kilometers an hour, 12% incline, and then I'll do a minute of really difficult. Now this will be like max incline, as fast as I can walk, like 6 kilometers an hour, is pretty much as fast as I can waddle. And then I'll do that for a minute and then go back to the original speed. Now, doing that, as soon as you get back to that 12 and 5, I just call it 12 and 5. As soon as you get back to that 12% incline, 5 kilometers an hour, you'll be like, wow, this is easy, this is a rest. And it'll feel like it's a different speed and setting to where you had it on before. But really, it's just like, you've gotten used to that, oh shit, now this is hard. Then you get back to the normal one and like, this is easy. So that is really, really good. So that burns more calories, obviously, because you're increasing the intensity for half of the time. And also it makes it so much easier to stick to because it changes it up and it makes it feel like it's not just the same thing for 40 minutes straight or whatever it is. So I really, really enjoy doing that. Now I will go through different kind of like intervals of just varying what I do. Now I will do incline walking fast. That's probably the easiest because it's just there. And sometimes if it's really challenging and I feel like I really don't want to get through this cardio, I'll grab some dumbbells and do farmer's carries for a minute. Now this is really difficult because you feel like you just want to drop the dumbbells. Now, granted, if you do this in the middle of a busy gym, you might get some weird looks, but also, fuck them. It doesn't really matter, who even cares? Now, what this is gonna do, guys, is like I said, it is gonna kind of retrain your brain of what's actually difficult. Now, it also keeps your mind busy because you're not having to think, oh, this is just the same shit the whole time. You have to be conscious, increase your speed, do all that. And I just do it minute by minute. I just keep doing that. And I've found this to be the best way for me to stick to my cardio routine, especially when it gets difficult. And it really, really makes it harder. And it kind of makes it more fun as well. And also on that, you don't want to go too hard too early. Because if you just do it and say, okay, I'm doing it an hour every day in the gym, you'll do it for a week and you're like, this sucks, and you'll get over it. So what you need to do is start slow, just so you can really solidify those habits. And a really good way of doing that is just to go outside, go for a walk outside. Start to make a part of your day, then you'll do it every day. So for me now, I've done cardio every day for literally as long as I can, not as long as I can remember. I didn't do it when I was 4. But I've done cardio every day for like the past 2 years probably, because it's just been a normal thing. Now that I'm getting leaner, I've started to go, okay, instead of going outside today, I'm gonna do it on the treadmill and do my intervals and stuff. So then I will increase the intensity. So basically when you have cardio, you can increase the intensity to burn more calories, or you can increase the duration, or you can increase the frequency. These are just more, it's the same as like normal volume. You can increase the intensity and you can increase the amount that you're doing things. So for that, it's minutes on the treadmill, and it's also how difficult those minutes are. So basically they're the variables you can play around with, but definitely guys, if you're just starting, start small. Don't just jump into my hard cardio routine if you're just fresh off, because then you kind of got nowhere to go. You'd rather start outside, see the results. Instead of going to an hour outside, you might go 30 minutes on the treadmill on a bit of an incline, something like that. But again, also do what you enjoy. I don't mind just smashing it out on the treadmill and getting a sweat up and actually feeling pretty good. I don't mind that. And there's days when I just want to go outside, and so I'll do that. So yeah, listen to your body. That's another important thing too, is try not to force things. But yeah, it just comes down to building those good habits anyway. Now guys, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this and took something out of it. If you did learn something, or at least moderately enjoyed it, please give the video a like and leave me a lovely comment below, because I do read the comments and I'll try to get back to them as much as I can. But that is it for me guys, and you definitely know what to do. Stay nice. Slide into your DMs in the PM and the AM, then I slide into your feelings when you see just what I'm saying.
Thanks to Hover for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. Hey there, my name is Thomas Frank, and for the past about 8 years, I have made my full-time living on the internet. That's been done primarily through my blog, College Info Geek, a podcast that I run, and this YouTube channel, with income sources ranging from speaking engagements to YouTube ads to sponsorships, affiliate marketing, sales of my own book, and a secret OnlyFans account. One of those is a lie. Can we leave that in the video? So as somebody who makes their living primarily from creating things for the internet, I naturally get a lot of questions from people who want to do the exact same thing. And I remember being one of the people asking those questions. Back when I started my blog about 10 years ago, I was primarily doing it just to boost my resume and to have fun, but I quickly started reading blogs written by people who were making their full-time incomes, sometimes over 6 figures, just running their blogs. At first, I thought this lifestyle would be impossible for me to achieve. The freedom seemed alluring, but I felt that that was for other people who got lucky and I would just have to work a job and just blog on the side. But I was curious, so I started learning and started devouring as much as I could possibly get my hands on, from the tiniest details on website speed to the marketing psychology behind the colors of buttons on landing pages. And about 2.5 years after I first started my blog, I hit full-time income for the first time. About 3 years ago, I hit 6 figures in income for the first time, and last year we did over $500,000 in gross revenue. I'm throwing these numbers out here not to brag, but to provide a little bit of context on A, what's possible, B, what's happened in my experience, and to hopefully give myself a little bit of credibility for making a video like this. So today, what I want to do is kind of explain some of the ways that you can use to make money on the internet if that's something that you want to do. So first, we're going to cover some pretty important groundwork here, and then I'm going to be covering 5 different ways that you can use to make money on the internet. And for each of these methods, I'm going to give you some tips for both getting started in it and being more successful with it. To lay down that groundwork I talked about, the main idea I want to communicate here is this. Making money on the internet is just like making money out in the physical world in at least one key dimension, which is that you have to have some way of providing scarce value. So what do I mean by that? Well, value is obvious. If you remember your economics class, you probably remember that money is, number 1, a store of value, number 2, a medium of exchange, and number 3, a unit of account. So essentially, money is a way of giving a numeric value to, well, value. I value not mowing my lawn, so I pay a lawn mowing company to do it instead. Of course, there are different levels of value as well. Something that I value more than that is having a person to edit my videos, which is also something that takes more skill. So as a result, I pay my editor Tony quite a bit more than I pay the lawn mowing company. By scarce, I mean not abundant. The more choice that a customer has when it comes to a given service, the more you, as the service provider, are gonna have to start competing on price. And the more you have to compete on price, the more you have to start eating into your margins, which is the difference between your income and what you had to spend to make that income on things like buying inventory, running ads, paying for web hosting, whatever it might be. A great example here is drop shipping, and I will not be surprised if you get an ad for a drop shipping course on this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Essentially, drop shipping is a business model where you identify a product, set up an online store for it, and then when a customer orders that product, you actually send that order to a supplier who sends it to the customer. You don't keep anything on hand. This is a very attractive business model because number one, you don't have to spend any money up front on inventory, which is usually risky and requires warehouse space. And number two, you don't even have to deal with the hassle of shipping orders to customers. Instead, as the ads for so many dropshipping courses will tell you, all you gotta do is find a cool product, build an online site where people can order that product, and then just drive traffic to the website using slick Instagram ads or search engine optimization, or whatever. And you can do all of
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Warcraft video. Today, it's a fun break from the norm because we are going to be going through the many myths, mysteries, and misunderstandings from Warcraft's history. Yes, the secrets, the urban legends that spread across the player base, especially in the game's earlier days, some of which were even gobbled up by Blizzard and turned into content. So, join us today for a fun trip through memory lane, and especially if you are a new player, then there's going to be cool stuff that you've not heard of. Secrets locked behind time, just like how you should lock your mega high security passwords behind Dashlane, today's sponsor, who you'll get 10% off with at dashlane.com/bellular. Dashlane generates high security passwords for every single site that you use, and then it automatically logs you in through its extensions or its phone app. And that means you never have to type in passwords manually, which is pretty awesome. Plus, it even works in phones, which is so darn convenient. Now all your info is locally decrypted with your master password, so even if Dashlane servers were hacked, it would be like breaking into the bank and then finding out, oh dear, the bank doesn't have the key to the vault. They've also got dark web monitoring, a VPN, and if you use a site that gets hacked, they will bing you over a security alert. So you get all of that in one app across all your different platforms, and if you follow my link down below and you use that promo code Bellular, you'll get 10% off, which is pretty sweet. So thanks to them for supporting our team. And with that said, let's get into the urban legends of World of Warcraft. First, Tirisfal Glades, the beginning of speculation. I mean, even from its name, Tirisfal, which does, of course, make you think it is tied to the lore. But really, way back in the day, Classic was the cradle of speculation and urban legends, and really nowhere more so than the Tirisfal Glades. It's got a legacy in Warcraft, with loads of referential vignettes being there. You've got the Fairy Ring, where Malfurion communed with the local spirits in War 3. There's the Sound of Arthas committing regicide that plays out in Lordaeron when you actually go into the throne room of the Undercity. All of those really cool things. Of course, though, this sense of mystery was the most keen in the Whispering Forest. Now, this is a really cool place. Eventually, a fairy ring and proper things were added where the little fairies and the spirits did a ritual, and that was added in Cataclysm, but before then, it was just pure mystery. Now, it was speculated for a long time that this is where the initial High Elves landed, and that it was actually the source of their madness, that there was something underneath the Tirisfal Glades. Well, ultimately, we would find out that there was somewhere, or something, underneath the Tirisfal Glades, that it was the resting place of Zakaj, a Cathaxi general, but, well, suffice to say, people thought there was a hell of a lot more back then. And of course, that's the reason why the High Elves, after noticing this madness after a few years, decided to hike up north and found Kalthlas, because obviously there was some weird old god heebie-jeebies going on. And this reminds me of another location in the game, and that is the Master's Glaive, that big old god-looking corpse in Darkshore. We now know what it is. We know it's just a Cathaxi general, and that it doesn't really matter that much. But between the nearby dungeon and that, way back in vanilla, people were just so interested in what that could be. Of course, even mysteries that it could be super tied to an old god, things like that. But once again, like with Zakaj, it's a situation where sometimes finding out really what the mystery is can be a bit less satisfying than the mystery itself. But yes, the Whispering Forest was that secluded spot that really fired off the community's imagination to the point where Blizzard actually started to create lore around people's headcanon. But initially, way back before the Cataclysm changes to the area, what I remember is the player's discourse, and that WoW Insider map that drew a pentagram over Azeroth. And that pointed to significant old god locations, such as Ulduar, and one of the points on that pentagram was Tirisfal. And that led people to think, well, many things, that there could have been an old god in chains underneath the Tirisfal Glades, that it maybe even was the Rift of Uln. So yes, Legion's reveal was less impactful than those, to say the least, but this is a mystery that kept people thinking for years. And one of the strangest of all player-reported things, and something that I can self-report myself from way back in the day, is hearing the sound of rattling chains and a beating heart under that area, around that area, all the way back in, well, for me it was TBC, for many people it was vanilla. Apparently in vanilla that was actually before a heartbeat was added. But saying that, I remember this vividly, and I cannot find any clear references to this online. But I know I remember when I was in the local gaming cafe after the rowing club, a friend of mine saying, hey, come, look at this. I found this really cool thing, or heard about this really cool thing. And I put the headphones on, and I nuked all of the sounds in the game, bar sound effects, which I cranked up to maximum. And what did I hear? I heard those rattling chains. I heard that heartbeat. So was that just me going mad? Am I inventing a memory? Well, I know I heard that. Jared knows that in our team, that he heard that. And I have heard people talk about it before, but I've yet to find super solid evidence of it. So, is this just one of those spooky urban mysteries? Let me know if you remember. Next, and staying in Lordaeron, there was an urban legend that if you spoke to the students of Scholomance, they would all aggro and attack you, which was a death sentence as they were hard as nails, collectively more powerful than any boss in that dungeon. Now this is a funny one because it was an urban legend, and there are conflicting accounts on Wowhead in the archives that if you talk to either Vectis or Marduk 3 times, then they would aggro. But this simply isn't true. This is an urban legend that just sort of spontaneously appeared in the player base as people talked to each other and played that game of telephone twisting information. Though it is something that likely just stemmed from how difficult of a pull that encounter was. But still, an interesting situation where, way back in the day, when people didn't really have authoritative sources and everything was based on comments on databases and hearsay, that yes, beliefs like this could just permeate the player base. Next, let's take a diversion from places and talk about things. So, Quel'Dalar. Of course, Quel'Serrar was an amazing vanilla tanking weapon, and it's one that was acquired from a short quest chain that brought people to Dire Maul and to Onyxia's lair. Now, during the journey, the journey to get that in Dire Maul, you'd be talking to a highborn called Lidros. Now, Lidros would tell you this: rumors exist of a single legendary blade of Quel'Serrar crafted for an unknown entity by the combined might of 5 aspects. And that was it. That's all he said. And this sent players in this wild goose chase for this unfired Quel'Serrar blade, which we of course would later know is called Quel'Dalar. And they were trying to get the dragons from each of the 5 aspects to use like a breath attack, even, in the hopes that Quel'Serrar would appear, that Quel'Dalar would appear, that this mysterious unfired blade that this highborn spoke of would appear. And yeah, people actually went for that. People followed that mystery. And again, these were the days where people did not have or even know of authoritative sources for things. The game was not extensively data mined in the way it is today. So the idea of something being totally undiscovered was real. And that would mean that Blizzard could just put in one breadcrumb of quest text, and bam, they would set off a wild goose chase. Now, of course, this unfired blade of Quel'Dalar was eventually added to the game in Wrath of the Lich King. It was obtained from a quest chain. It was item level 232, I remember it well, where you would start by getting a battered hilt, which would drop from the Ice Crown Citadel dungeons, and if memory serves, you could then turn that, of course, into that item via quest, or it would go for about, and I think it was about 10k gold on the auction house. Next, we've got another item that really threw people for a loop, and that is the Talisman of Binding, a legendary necklace that players could theoretically get from the Molten Core. And man, if they could, it would have been amazing. You know, it had strength, stamina, agility, and loads of fire and nature resistance, which obviously would just be dead handy in vanilla. Super alluring, and the thing is, it did drop. It only ever dropped once, and it seems to have been a mistake that it even dropped, and like it was an early attempt at itemizing a legendary. So yes, it was mistakenly added to the game, it did drop once, and that got people thinking about it. But that didn't stop players from reattempting and trying to get that to drop again and again and again for the remainder of vanilla. Of course, it never did. Now, in a world where an ultra-rare 0.1% mount is totally a thing, you can absolutely see why people may actually have still believed that they might have even had a chance of getting this, even though it was, of course, absolute bull. Next, it is time for one of the most legendary non-quest chain interactions in the entire game's history. This is truly epic, and it's one the players actually had to really just figure out the fine details of themselves. And it is the Ashbringer, the pure Ashbringer. You see, players knew that the legendary, non-corrupted Ashbringer was actually in the game files. So, when the corrupted Ashbringer was actually added into the game, well, it started off a treasure hunt like no other. So, the epic quality sword, the corrupted Ashbringer, would drop from the 4 Horsemen encounter in Nax 40, and when worn, it would give people Will of the Ashbringer. Now, this was a buff that made the Argent Dawn hostile, but more importantly, the Scarlet Crusaders friendly. And that meant, well, it was time for some investigations. The sword would then whisper to the player, telling the wielder how it was once a pure blade, how the Scarlet Crusade was corrupt, and to kill them all. But how could you kill them all if you were friendly to them? Well, to sort this out, it was time to go to the Scarlet Monastery. And what happened here was one of the most unique events to be ever put into the game. And I think what I love even more is, it was just put there. Players just had to find out themselves by doing and testing and trying and going places. So the player would go there, and the ending of this interaction between Alexandros Morgraine and his son raised more questions than it answered, which led to the community searching Azeroth far and wide for more of these unique, spontaneous interactions to try to work out how they could get the Ashbringer. Players would bring in sources from far, far afield. An example of this was the wizard that Alexia Ironknife and Bardu Sharpeye claimed crafted some great weapon for the Crusade. So they found that out. Then players found Timalane's phylactery and thought that that was like the next step in the puzzle and that it could offer more clues. So a search for Timalane or a way to resurrect him with this phylactery was started. And this led to players basically trying to bring this phylactery to significant Scourge locations. And try as they would, there was only one remaining lead to follow up, and it ended up being dry. At the end of the monastery encounter, Inquisitor Fairbanks told us that Alexandros had had a son who was alive, but he points to the sky and tells us, "The Outland, find him there." And that, in a rather authoritative fashion, brought a stop to the search for the uncorrupted Ashbringer. Truly something that was an epic set of things for Blizzard to have put into the game, and it's things like that with their new sort of secrets initiative that they've done since Legion, I just love to see. It puts so much more richness and texture into the game, doubly so when it's just your player character gets an item, that item changes their status to other people in the world and unlocks new conversational opportunities, such as that event in the Scarlet Monastery. Truly, truly incredible stuff. Next, though, we've got another big mystery. There was a locked box that players had actually convinced themselves was connected to this whole purified Ashbringer thing. In Tirisfal Glades, there was an unassuming
warehouse space, and number 2, you don't even have to deal with the hassle of shipping orders to customers. Instead, as the ads for so many dropshipping courses will tell you, all you gotta do is find a cool product, build an online site where people can order that product, and then just drive traffic to the website using slick Instagram ads or search engine optimization, or whatever. And you can do all of that while sipping a margarita from a beach in Bali, as long as it has Wi-Fi. But you're gonna be doing it alongside about a billion other dude bros trying to do the exact same thing. So remember this. Easy, low cost of entry equals huge competition equals razor thin or sometimes non-existent margins, which can put you in the hole. A better option is finding a way to increase the value of what you're offering or make it more unique somehow. For example, while most editors can provide basic cuts, Tony can do color grading, he can do intricate sound design, and he knows how to use B-roll to make the video that you're watching a little bit more pleasing to the eye. But of course, those skills take time and practice to develop. And in some cases, there may even be some form of monetary investment, like, I don't know, buying a $2,000 sound effects library. So keep this in mind. Before you can make significant money on the internet, you have to find a way of providing scarce value. Anybody who is telling you anything different is almost certainly trying to sell you something, and it's probably a course that helps them make money not doing the thing that they're teaching you how to do. You have to provide value. Luckily, there is more than one way to do that. So freelancing is probably the best place to start here because it is, in my opinion, one of the easiest ways to start making a decent amount of money on the internet fairly quickly, especially if you have a skill to start with. It's also the place where I started. Back in high school, I started a freelance web design business and I put up a website trying to get clients, and I actually landed a few that helped pay my bills throughout college. Now, I will admit that a lot of the clients I got didn't actually come from the internet. Some of them came from word of mouth referrals in my local area, and for other ones, I was actually making cold sales calls trying to get clients. But eventually, I did get 2 clients who found me through Google searches, and they hired me for ongoing web work that actually, again, paid some of the bills that I had during college and provided some decent money. If you want to talk about numbers, I think the first website I ever built, I charged about $350 for, and the last one I built before I moved into blogging, I charged around $2,000. So you can make some pretty good money doing web development. Whatever you want to do, if you want to get into freelancing, you first have to learn a skill that is in demand and that ideally you can do over the internet. So I'm talking about things like web development, video editing, podcast editing is a big one, professional writing, and sometimes even bookkeeping. Another option is actually doing in-person services, but marketing them over the internet using geo-targeted ads or by just targeting people in your area in other ways. So this could be things like photography and videography, maybe being a wedding photographer, doing interior decorating, or, and I'm surprised this is a thing, but I researched it and it is, you could become a decluttering and minimalism consultant.
Did you say minimalism?
In fact, you can even go get your KonMari certification to help people channel their inner Marie Kondo and declutter their lives. We live in a weird world, but hey, that's a thing you can do. Anyway, with freelancing, the great thing about it is that the investment you have to make up front to provide that value usually is gonna come in the form of time and sweat. You're often not gonna have to spend a whole lot of money. For instance, as a web developer, I learned pretty much everything I know for free, just looking at blogs, online resources, and that was over 10 years ago. Today, the resources for web development education that are free are vastly better than they were when I was learning. Codecademy is a great example. Okay, 3 tips for getting started as a freelancer. Number 1, and this is super important, you have to build an online portfolio. Have a place where people can look at the work you've done for clients in the past and judge whether or not your services are going to be right for them. If you don't have any clients right now, do some work on your own or possibly do some spec work for a nonprofit or something just to get some experience under your belt and a project that you can show off. Number 2, put what you do and where you are in your social media bios. I'm talking Twitter, I'm talking Instagram, I'm talking LinkedIn. People like me often go to Twitter and type in things like freelance graphic designer, freelance motion graphics artist. And then I will just start clicking on profiles, looking at the pinned tweets, looking at the URL in the profile, hopefully it's a portfolio, and I've made hiring decisions based on that kind of a search process. So do it. And finally, number 3, build relationships with other freelancers who offer complementary services. So if you're a freelance video editor like Tony, you might want to build some relationships with freelance motion graphics artists. That way, if a client comes along who needs both services, if they find the other person, they might be able to refer you and vice versa. Our second method for making money on the internet is affiliate marketing. So getting into affiliate marketing means essentially becoming an unofficial salesperson for another company. You sign up for their affiliate program, you put links to their products on your website or in your YouTube video descriptions, and then when people click those links or use your discount code and buy that product, you get a commission of that sale. Affiliate marketing actually drives a significant portion of the revenue that comes into my business, particularly over on my website, College Info Geek. For example, Skillshare's affiliate program pays $10 whenever anybody signs up through my link. So on my website, I have all these little ads up for my own courses over on Skillshare. Whenever anybody clicks those and signs up, I get $10. The internet's biggest affiliate program is Amazon's. Now, the commission they pay on most product sales is pretty small, but the upside of participating in that program is that, well, you can link to pretty much any product on Amazon, and there's millions of products. So sites like The Wirecutter make pretty much all of their income by creating buyer's guides on the best headphones or the best Bluetooth speaker. And when somebody comes in and clicks the buy button on their recommendation, they get a cut of that sale. So how much money can you make with affiliate marketing? Well, it varies really wildly. For one example, ConvertKit, which is an email marketing service, pays their affiliates a recurring 30% commission on any sale they bring in. Recurring. So as somebody who uses ConvertKit, I have about 100,000 people on my email list, which means I have to reluctantly fork over about $700 a month to ConvertKit. And that means that the person who referred me, because there was somebody who referred me, is making a nice $210 a month just off of me. Recurring. On the other end of the spectrum, we have programs like Amazon's, which again don't pay a whole lot per sale. At present moment, for example, they are currently paying 3% for headphone sales. So if we want to go back to our Wirecutter example, if Wirecutter is recommending a $200 pair of headphones, that means that if somebody clicks their link, they're making $6 on that sale. And that means that Wirecutter has to bring a crap ton of traffic into their headphone buying guide. Let's be super generous and say that 1% of the people who read that guide actually go on to buy those headphones through their link. That means they're essentially making 6 cents per page view. So to make that same $210 that the ConvertKit affiliate made just off of me, they need to bring in 3,500 page views. So to be successful as an affiliate marketer, you have to do 3 things. First, you have to find programs that pay a good amount per sale. Second, you need to figure out how to drive more traffic to the web pages that contain your links or the YouTube videos that contain them. And finally, you want to find a way to increase your conversion percentage, which is the portion of people who actually click your links and then the portion of those people who actually go on to buy. How do you do those things? Well, for the first problem, you just need to do your research. And platforms like Impact actually contain a marketplace where companies can post their affiliate programs and their conversion percentages, and then you can apply to join those programs if you like. For traffic, you want to build an audience. There's a couple of different strategies for doing this. Personally, I built a blog and then a podcast and then a YouTube channel around a general topic that I was interested in. And then over time, as affiliate opportunities arose for that topic, I added them in organically. But some people take the opposite strategy. Some people will first find a product they want to promote, and then they will use keyword research to try to match that to a problem or an interest that people have. And if you want to go this route, you can use tools like Ahrefs.com to do keyword research. You're looking for keywords that have a decent amount of search interest, but not a lot of competition. And if you find one, you can start writing articles on it or making YouTube videos on it in the hopes that you're going to rank well in either Google searches or in YouTube search. If you bring in traffic, you're hopefully going to bring in affiliate commissions. Finally, you want to find a way to increase those conversion percentages. And this could be an entire video all on its own. I don't know if it would fit on this general channel, but essentially you want to start learning marketing strategies and get data driven. So track how much traffic you get and how many clicks you get, then make a change and then track the data again and compare and see what you can do. Income source number 3, European 3, is the programmatic ad. So programmatic ads are ads that run alongside content that you create. These are different from brand deals, which we're going to talk about next, because programmatic ads are not sold by you and you don't deliver the talking points yourself either. So the example that you're probably most familiar with is YouTube AdSense, which runs the ads that you see and, let's be honest, probably try to skip every single time before you watch a video. Unless you're watching this on Nebula, which has no ads. Anyway, when it comes to programmatic ads, the acronym, actually no, it's not an acronym, it's an initialism. And the initialism that you want to keep in mind is CPM, which stands for cost per meal. And meal is just the Latin, French, and Italian word for 1,000. So we're talking about cost per 1,000 views here. This is how these ads are often priced. So if the CPM is on average $2, which it could be here on YouTube quite often, then that means if you want to make the same $210 that we had back in our affiliate marketing example, you got to bring in 105,000 views. So as you can see, if you want to make money on programmatic ads, you gotta have a huge audience, which is why you probably see most of your favorite YouTubers diversifying their income streams, doing brand deals, doing merch. AdSense can be a decent revenue stream. I make about $7,000 or $8,000 a month on it, but it is one of my smaller income streams and I don't rely on it. Again, because the CPMs are so small, you have to have a huge audience to rely on it. That being said, if you are hell-bent on being the next Jacksepticeye or Mr. Beast and you know you're gonna be bringing in millions of views, there is something really important I need to talk to you about when it comes to programmatic advertising, and that is the relationship between views and income. A lot of people think this relationship is very strong, and they'll often ask me questions like, hey dude, how much money could I make off of 1 million views? To which I always have to answer, it really, really depends. Views and income are not strongly correlated. Views are only one variable in a very complex equation. And this is gonna be obvious to you if you think about it for more than a few seconds. So let's do an example here. Let's say that I run a company that sells expensive pool cleaning robots. If I'm considering running ads on my friend Matt's channel that's all about pool maintenance, I can be reasonably sure about a couple of different things. Number one, the people watching Matt's videos probably own pools. Otherwise, why would they be watching videos about how to clean a pool? And number two, because those people most likely own pools, I can also be reasonably sure that those people probably make a decent amount of money as well because they own pools. So that means I have a relatively affluent potential customer base. And because of that, I might be willing to pay a $10 CPM to advertise on one of Matt's videos, which means that even if he's only bringing in 10,000 views on a video, those views are gonna be worth a lot. And to give you a counterexample, let's talk about Philip DeFranco. I love Philip DeFranco's channel, but let's be honest, a lot of what Philly D talks about is essentially celebrity gossip and controversy. And something that we know about celebrity gossip and controversy as humans who love us a little bit of schadenfreude in the morning is that all kinds of people are gonna click on that, which means that if I'm running that pool robot company, I can't really be reasonably sure about who is in Philly D's audience. It could be a pool owner, it could be somebody living in an apartment who has no interest in owning a pool whatsoever. And because of that, I can't afford to spend as much per view on Philip's channel. Maybe I'm gonna pay a 50-cent CPM. So to make the same amount of money that Matt makes on 10,000 views, Philly D is going to have to bring in, well, what's 20 times 10,000? It's gonna be 200,000 views. So again, the correlation between views and income is extremely weak. And if you want to be successful with programmatic advertising, you either need to bring in millions and millions of views on, video games or celebrity gossip or whatever you want, or maybe a little more strategic here, you pick a topic that's a little more niched down and that has a viewer base who might be a little more primed to buy slightly more expensive products. Now, I was picking on Philly D a little bit earlier, but he has something that is actually a huge feather in his cap, which is a loyal audience. And that makes his channel a great fit for, wait for it, brand deals. So brand deals, these are the sponsored segments that you're gonna see on most high view YouTube videos these days. These are the sponsored segments that are read by the creators themselves. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, you're gonna see one at the end of this video. And if you're somebody who usually skips those ads, I would say maybe stick around and watch this one just to see how I structure it. Because with brand deals and sponsor segments, there is a huge amount of price variability. And that is because there are a ton of different factors that go into the quality and the effectiveness of an ad. With a programmatic ad, you don't have a whole lot you can control. You can control the topic of your video, which may control the segment of people who watch it and influence your CPM somewhat. You can control the quality of the video to try to bring in more views, but that's about it. I guess you can also control ad placement, so pre-roll, post-roll, but with a sponsored segment, you have so much more control because you as the creator are doing the read yourself. The good news is that sponsored segments and brand deals typically pay a lot more than programmatic ads, sometimes 10 times more, sometimes even 20 times more. And that's because ads that are voiced by the creator, by the person that the viewer came to watch, are simply a lot more effective. The main downside is that brand deals are typically a little bit less accessible when you're getting started. And that's because you're gonna need to build up a sizable audience on your platform of choice first. Once you're bringing in a significant amount of views on YouTube or on Instagram or wherever it is, that's when you're gonna start seeing Raid Shadow Legends and various pubic hair removal products sliding into your DMs. Now, there are a lot of factors that are gonna go into the effectiveness of your spots, but the most important one, especially for your long-term success, is trust. You have to put your audience first, which means only promoting products that you know are going to be valuable and helpful for the people who watch and trust you. Another important concept that can increase the effectiveness of your sponsor reads is the AIDA framework, which stands for attention, interest, desire, and action. I think I first learned about this concept in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, where Alec Baldwin explains it with a lot more swear words than you're gonna hear in this video, but essentially a good ad follows these steps in this order. First, working to get the viewer's attention, then getting them interested by talking about something that the viewer hopefully cares about. Only at that point is it useful to start introducing the product's talking points and tying them to that interest. I see a lot of ads here on YouTube that do that whole smooth segue thing, but then immediately launch into the talking points for the product, which makes the ads less effective than they could be. Lastly, I have to say this. If you're a creator who gets approached about brand deals, remember what I talked about earlier with regards to views and pricing. They are not strongly linked. So it may be worth pricing your first couple of deals with a brand or an agency based on price, since you really don't have a whole lot of extra data to give them at that point. But after that, you shouldn't be pricing solely based on views. And never let an agency talk you into a view guarantee, because you know the views are not strongly linked to pricing. So if they are trying to make you believe that they are, they're probably not treating you fairly. Finally, we have method number 5, which is selling your own products, like this cool Pixelama sticker that I have on this mug, which is not mine, but the sticker is. So if you want to sell your own products, I don't blame you, because whether we're talking about sponsor segments or CPA ads or affiliate commissions, in any case, you're advertising somebody else's product, which means that you don't get the entirety of that sale, you just get a small slice of the pie. And what if you want the entire pie for yourself? Well, selling your own products can get you that, minus your expenses, of course. So the main thing I want to talk about when it comes to sales of your own products is that doing this almost always involves some kind of upfront investment. That could be monetary investment in the case that you have to buy inventory, though there are ways to mitigate that. Using crowdfunding sites like Kickstarter is one of them, but there is almost always going to be a huge upfront investment of your effort and time. And since this is your own product that you haven't sold before, there is a big risk factor because you don't know how well it's going to sell. So my main tip here is to do some market research. And the one example that always comes to mind when I think about this is involving my friend Grant Baldwin, who was a professional speaker who spoke at colleges and schools for most of his career. And at some point he wanted to create a course for people like yours truly who wanted to do the same thing. So instead of investing a ton of effort up front and creating this big long course and then trying to sell it, he first pre-sold access to a rough outline of the course to a small portion of his email list, of which I was one of those people. And I bought access to that pre-sale, which was about half of the price of the regular course. And what I got at first was literally just an Evernote outline with a bunch of bullet points of the things he thought needed to be in the course. And personally, I found this really, really helpful because I'm a quick learner and I really liked just being able to go down this bullet list and get a lot of my initial questions answered. So this was, in my opinion, a really great way to do some market research, gauge that interest, and kind of mitigate the risk involved in selling your own products. Now, personally, I use all 5 of these methods to create multiple sources of income for my business. And if you're just starting out, that should be your eventual goal. But at the beginning, it'd be a good idea to just pick one of these and make that your focus at first. But no matter which one you choose, there is one common factor, which is that you need to create an online presence for yourself. If you're a freelancer, that's going to include your portfolio where you can show potential clients your work. And if you're selling your own products, you need a place where people can go to buy them. But even if you just want to make money on YouTube, it's still a smart idea to create your own online space. You don't want your entire business to be at the mercy of a platform that you don't control. For me, that space is my personal website, thomasjfrank.com, where I have links to my book, to my courses that people can buy, and to other work that I've done. And if you want to create a space that's like mine, then the first thing you're going to need is a domain name, which you should get over at Hover. Hover is the best place on the internet to get your hands on domain names, not least of which because they have a pain-free, quick checkout process without any annoying pop-ups or friction. They also have hundreds of domain extensions you can choose from, so you can get your classic .com or .me, or you can get something kind of funky and interesting like I've gotten with thomas.lol. And one thing that I'm gonna note here is that even if you're not ready to start your business, if you do have a name in mind, it's a very smart idea to secure the domain name now so nobody else can take it from you once you are ready to get started. Once you do have your domain name, you can also create a professional looking email address for it, like thomas@collegeinfogeek.com or thomas@thomasjfrank.com. Plus, there's a feature called Connect, where you can easily connect your domain up to online website builders and even online store builders. So if you are ready to get your domain name, head over to hover.com/thomasfrank, where you can get 10% off your first order and support this channel. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hitting that like button gently with your middle knuckle is definitely helpful. That helps the YouTube algorithm know that people like these videos, and maybe it'll send it out to more people, so definitely helpful for me. And I just checked my stats the other day and realized that only 40% of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you aren't subscribed yet and you enjoyed this video, definitely hit that
home. If you're not feeling like a ton of symptoms, it's not urgent. I mean, it's not urgent. You shouldn't say that. Like, depends on what your labs show, but you'll probably go home. But even let's just say that things are a bit high and your labs are normal, then what will happen is that you'll go for labs every couple of days to kind of monitor that things stay normal.
Hey Fran, Levi here. What you just watched is the opening scene from a film that I've been working on for years. But specifically, it's about some changes in Janelle and my life in the last 11 months in particular. This is a really personal film for me, and it's been one of the most challenging edits I've ever come up against. It is very, very close to being finished and being publicly released. But I'm up against that wall of wondering if there's any last things I could do to make it better. And it's important for me to say that that Janelle is currently in good health. I'm not trying to make that a big mysterious question here, so I just don't have an interest in tricking or doing anything weird like that here. But this is a unique film for me, and kind of last minute yesterday I decided maybe to do a unique release of it as well, and maybe I'll decide later on that this was a terrible idea and never do it again. So definitely I'm open to your feedback on this style of releasing a more important piece. But right now the members of my channel can actually watch an exclusive early look at the full film in its current draft. The whole thing around 8 minutes long. I'm doing this because I want to be able to get, I'm so nervous about the release of this that I'd really love for the people I know that support me to see it. And also, when running my channel, I do need support. I do need your help to make more videos like this. You can easily just become a member of the channel for the price of a nice coffee by clicking the join button down below. There's also a link in the description for those on Apple devices. But if you want to support the channel, this is a great way to do that. And you can also select just a level up from the normal membership, which would get you your name in the end credits of this finished film. So honestly, I just would love to share this with you all, and it will be public, available very, very soon. But it's important to me to kind of just do this last check of how does it play for an audience, because normally I'd love to do this for groups of people in life, but under the current circumstances, that's just not really possible to premiere things. So I'm doing this private early premiere just to channel members, and yeah, either way, I can't wait to get this out into the world. I'm truthfully pretty nervous for you all to see it, and it just means a lot to me. So thanks everyone. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. See ya.
What's up, you guys? It's Graham here. So I felt like doing something a little bit different today, and instead of the normal investing related content, I'm going to be using myself as an example and breaking down in detail my net worth for every single year that I began working, going all the way back to high school. This is something I haven't seen anyone do on YouTube before to this extent, so I figured, why not? I may as well do it. And yeah, I know this sounds like one of those super scammy, I'll teach you how to be rich webinars, but honestly, there's no ulterior motive here and there's nothing you need to buy. But no, for real, I've always been the type of person to learn by example, and when I was younger, geez, even now, today, I'm really interested to learn how people did it and where they started off. In fact, most of the time, I'm even more interested in what a person did before the point where you see them today. I just think stuff like that is a lot more relatable, and it's something I wish a lot more people were open to talking about and discussing. So I may as well just go ahead and start, and I'm going to be covering every single year, beginning at the age of 15 years old, how much money I make, how much money I was worth, and everything I did along the way. Hopefully it's helpful to see how I was able to do it, and maybe you could implement a few of these things in your own life as well, or at the very least, I hope it's just entertaining. So of course, if you appreciate this type of openness and transparency, because I don't think I've seen any other YouTuber go into this level of detail before in a video like this, if you wouldn't mind just destroying the like button for the YouTube algorithm, that's it. It takes just 2 seconds. It's really easy to do, and if you get any amount of value from this at all, just doing that would greatly help me out. I really appreciate it. Okay, so with that said, I'm gonna sit in my chair over here and we'll start here. All right, so let's get the counter started over here, and by the time I was 17 years old, I had a net worth of maybe $5,000. That might even be pretty generous, and I'm probably rounding it up a little bit higher than it should be because I don't exactly recall how much it was, but give or take about that amount. Now that was a result of working 4 years part-time throughout high school at a marine aquarium wholesaler, and my job was to go in and photograph the inventory as it came in. I would help categorize it for their website, among a whole bunch of other random stuff. Now it sounds like a super random job, and it is, but I absolutely loved it, and I was obsessed with saltwater aquariums back then. Before I got this job, I would spend all my time after school on a website called reefcentral.com, where people would go and share tips and tricks about keeping reef aquariums. It was actually through that website that I was introduced to the local fish community, and that's actually a thing. And then from there, I expressed interest to one of the fish store owners about being able to work there part-time because I enjoyed it so much. That's what ended up turning into my part-time job, and I'm super fortunate and lucky to have supportive parents who were really encouraging of me working like this, and they would pick me up a few times a week and then drive me into work until I got my driver's license, so I was super lucky. Now at the time, I didn't really know what to do with my money. I knew I should save it, and that's about it, so all the money I made just went straight into a savings account. Even back then in high school, I was super frugal with my money, and I would avoid spending it unless I absolutely needed to. But that paid off, and I was able to have a savings of about $5,000 by the time I turned 18 years old. Now 18 years old is where things started getting interesting, and now we can update this net worth tracker over here to $30,000. Now a small consequence of working throughout high school was that it made me realize I did not want to stay in school. I didn't care for tests and homework. I just wanted to go out and make money. Ultimately, that caused my grades to suffer a lot because once I got my driver's license, I would intentionally go and skip school just so I could work instead. Basically, my grades were so bad, my test scores were so low that I didn't get into any colleges, and that combined with another short-lived job I absolutely hated led me to wanting to get my real estate license. I ended up using my savings throughout high school to go and pay for the licensing requirements in the online school, so I was really thankful I had my money saved away to be able to pay for that. Now, wanting to be a real estate agent was a bit of a random choice, but my thought process was that I wanted to be my own boss, I wanted to make my own schedule, and most importantly, I wanted to do something that didn't require a college degree, so I thought, well, my real estate license fits into that perfectly. So of course, I went to Google to figure out how to be a real estate agent, and then through that, I started taking all of my classes online, and because I didn't know anybody in the real estate industry, I would go to open houses every single week just to meet with other agents and introduce myself and then ask for their advice. And of course, I would purposely pick the most expensive open houses I could possibly find in Los Angeles because I figured if I was gonna go and do this, I may as well start at the top, and like that's what I found the most inspirational. Most agents that I met just would completely brush me off as some annoying kid who went up and would just talk their ear off, but after doing that for a while, one agent was really encouraging of me getting in the business, and we ended up talking that day for probably an hour or two. And at the end of that conversation, he ended up offering me a spot on his team where basically I would go and somewhat work for free, and then whatever business I would bring in, we would split it 50-50. That's the point where I began working about 8 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I just had so much fun doing it. Like I really felt like I had found my calling because it was fun. I started off by photographing his lease listings and then putting those pictures up on Craigslist, and then prospective tenants would call me and I would show them the place for rent, and if they rented it, me and him would split whatever commission I made 50-50. Then I remember there's a point where he didn't have any more lease listings for me to post on Craigslist, and I wanted to continue posting more lease listings on Craigslist. So what I did is go to other agents in my office who had leases, and I offered to take free photography of their listing in exchange for them allowing me to post it on Craigslist and potentially represent a tenant if they called me. If they ended up renting it out on their own, then I didn't get anything, but they got free photography. And if I ended up renting it, well, they still get free photography and I get to represent the tenant. That ended up working really well for me, and I was gaining some momentum and actually starting to make some money. Typically, those commissions were anywhere from a few $100 to a few $1,000 depending on the price and term of the lease, and I was able to do a few of those every other week because at the time, we were in a housing crash and a lot of people were not buying houses, but instead they were renting. I would say in the first 9 months of me doing that, I made about $38,000, and that was from me working about 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. almost every single day. And for me, $38,000 at like 18 years old, that was a lot of money. Now, I didn't have any idea of what to do with that money, so all I did is I just threw it in a savings account, and that was it. It was also at this time that I needed a better car to show clients around in because I was driving, it was a 1997 Ford Explorer with about 150,000 miles on the clock. The seats were kind of tearing up a little bit, the bumpers were all dinged up and scratched, and there was like paint scuffs everywhere. So I went and spent about $7,000 to buy a used 2006 Toyota Prius, and at the very least, I could be a bit more presentable when I was showing clients around or pulling up in front of a listing. Within a year though, things began really picking up, and by 19 years old, I had a net worth of about $80,000. Some of this may have been a bit luck, but I really believe the more you put yourself out there, the more opportunity can come your way, and this was no exception, and here's what happened. I would hold open houses as a real estate agent every single Sunday without fail. Typically in the summer, it would be from 2 to 5 p.m., and in the winter, it would be from 1 to 4 p.m. But after a few weeks of doing that, I thought to myself, wait a second, all the open houses are during the exact same time. So if I wanted to get more people in my houses, what I would do is just start an hour early and then end an hour later, and that's what I did. And after about 8 months of holding extended open houses every single Sunday, eventually a buyer came in looking for a $3 million home. Now keep in mind, this price point was about average for the area I was holding open houses in, and I never grew up in an area like that, by the way. I would drive 45 minutes every single day just to get into Beverly Hills because that's where I wanted to work and that's where my office was. But anyway, after months of holding open houses, this buyer came in and I ended up closing that buyer on a $3.65 million home shortly afterwards. After all commission splits and everything, it worked out to be about a $40,000 commission to me, which was insane. Like that was more money than I had ever seen in my entire life. Now going and closing on that deal actually gave me a lot of confidence as a real estate agent that I actually had what it takes to sell a home. And just 2 months after that, I ended up closing another home for $1.2 million from someone who I met from Craigslist who was originally looking to rent a house but then later decided to buy something instead. At the same time, I was still leasing places by posting them up on Craigslist, so a lot of my work was beginning to pay off, and I wish I could tell you guys that I saved all the money, but honestly, I spent about $33,000 on that buying a used 2006 Chrome Orange Lotus Elise, which was my dream car. Maybe that wasn't the smartest purchase for me to have made at the time, especially because I didn't really have anything invested and I just went and bought a car. But that car ended up getting me into the car community where I met some of my best friends and clients even to this day. Plus, in hindsight, the car didn't end up losing any value whatsoever by the time I sold it, so it actually turned out to be a relatively good purchase. Now, when I was 20 years old, I had a net worth of about $150,000. This, I would say, was the peak of my workaholism, and I was just in a really weird spot in life. I had very few friends, and besides meeting up with people in the car community for those Sunday morning drives, I just felt really out of place. Everybody I worked with was at least like 40 or 50 years old and in a totally different place in life, and I could not relate to them socially. But on the other hand, everyone my own age just felt super immature in comparison, and I was in this weird in-between spot where I was just really lonely. Because of that, I just poured myself into work, and that gave me really good motivation to take on as much as I could because it just kept me going. I just hated being alone not doing anything because it made me realize that I had no friends to go and hang out with. But on the bright side, I ended up making way more money because I took on all the business that no one else wanted, and I had all the time in the world to do it. I would work with the really difficult clients that no one wanted to deal with. I would work with the small deals that weren't worth anyone else's time. I would work with deals that didn't even lead to a sale because I just wanted the practice. But that wound up working in my favor because some of that business ended up leading to more sales and more business to me as an agent, and it was that year that I was able to cross $100,000 in income. Almost all of that was from a few sales and rather large lease commissions, but it made me feel as though I was working towards something. And it felt really good to start seeing all of my hard work and efforts beginning to pay off. By 21 years old, things really began accelerating a lot, and I was able to build up my net worth to about $260,000. This is also the year where I ended up selling one of my largest homes ever at $5.5 million. And that buyer is actually someone who reached out to me in the very beginning from one of my Craigslist lease postings. And then by the time his company IPO'd, he ended up using me to represent him on the home he purchased. And that commission is really what I ended up using to go and buy my first property. See, at the time I was really stressed out with the inconsistencies of real estate commissions. And the way it works is that I found myself working non-stop for months on end without earning a single penny, and then randomly, a few months later, I'll have a few deals all closing in 1 week. I really didn't want to have to constantly rely on the next deal to bring in my income with no idea when or how much that's going to be. So that's really the point where I started taking a very active role in investing and trying to get my money to work for me. So I ended up using all of my savings and even selling my Lotus Elise to use all of that money to go and buy real estate in San Bernardino that would eventually end up making me about $3,000 a month. The first property was bought for $59,500, the second one for $72,000, and the third one for $125,000. Each of those properties were lightly fixed up, and by the time I turned 22, they were all rented out. Now at that point, I literally had no cash in the bank. I was completely broke. Like, I would be lucky to have a few $100s sitting in a checking account, and that's it. And I'll never forget how motivating that was to me to know that I had nothing to fall back on now with my bank account, and that just served as more fuel to go and close more real estate deals. By 22 years old, those properties were beginning to go up in value, and my income was increasing as a real estate agent, and that's what led to me having a $320,000 net worth. I would say this was the age where I began getting really interested in investing, and I spent a lot of my time browsing the internet, learning about investing in real estate, how to increase my credit score, learning about how to open up a Roth IRA, learning about what a 401k is, learning about how to increase my credit score, you name it. I think really once I saw my money firsthand working for me, it was all I could think about. It was also at this age where I discovered what's known as the FIRE community, or Financially Independent Retire Early, and it was this whole community that believed exactly as I did. They prioritized saving money, investing consistently, and then living frugally so you have more time left over to focus on what you enjoy the most. That also really shifted my mindset away from how much money do I make every year to instead, how much money does my money make me every single year, and then I counted that as my income. For example, if I made $100,000 a year after taxes, I would not see that as $100,000 a year. Instead, I would see that as $800 a month from a rental property every single month that I would not have to worry about with a $100,000 investment. And if I could just do that every single year over 10 years, then that would mean eventually I would have $8,000 a month coming in from rental income, and I would never have to worry about money ever again. And that gave me more of a purpose and an end goal to work towards rather than just aimlessly saving money to save money. At least this gave me the option to then not have to stress about whether or not I make a sale that month, or if I wanted to do something else I could, or if I wanted to travel I could, without money being a factor in that decision. And I'm really thankful to have learned that at 22 years old, all thanks to Reddit and the financial independence community. But in terms of my work here, my income as a real estate agent steadily began increasing, and I think that year I did about $120,000 in commissions. My past lease clients were beginning to buy homes at this point, so I was a lot more busy working on home sales rather than leases. And that of course helped me make more money now for the time that I was working. Now by 23 years old, I had my property values going up and my income increasing, and that led to a net worth of about $440,000. A lot of this was due to the property values going up. I was still working the same hours as a real estate agent. That income was increasing a little bit to about $120,000 a year, and I was investing in an S&P 500 index fund. This year for me was really just a lot more of the same. I began getting a little bit more comfortable as a real estate agent. I started taking on a little bit more business, and more clients were using me to represent them on their home purchase. This is also the point where I began spending a lot of my free time on Reddit, reading up on the financial independence subreddit, reading up about investing your money, and tracking everything on Mint.com. I really just made it a priority to save as much money as I possibly could. I would try to build up my credit score, and then when I had enough money, I would use that to go and invest back into buying another property. Now, by 24 years old, through all of that work, my net worth was able to pass $560,000. My business was becoming a lot more consistent as a real estate agent, and a lot of my past clients were then referring me more business, which meant I could kind of scale back on some of the lease listings on Craigslist. And even though I really didn't have much of a life outside work, I was still really happy with the way everything was going. However, I did start to feel like around this time I was plateauing in terms of what I was able to do as a real estate agent. I was just starting to feel like no matter what I did or how hard I worked, my income was not going up as much as I expected it to. I just felt like I would see every other agent in my office surpassing me, selling these mega mansions for these huge commissions, and especially as the market was going up, everything was flying off the shelves. And I really just didn't understand why I was working harder than them and doing more than them and working more hours than all of these other agents, and I was not getting a similar result. So it was really around this time that I began to reevaluate my business and take a very close look at who I was working with and what I was doing to try to figure out either how I could improve or what I was doing wrong. Now, at the same time as that, the rental properties were continuing to go up in value, and I think for several years in a row, San Bernardino was one of the areas that had seen the most appreciation year over year in California, which is just a bit lucky. The rents didn't really change much because I never raised them, but at least the property values were going up, and that helped me out. Then at 25 years old, there were a lot of changes, but by the end of that year, I had a net worth of about $750,000. This is the time where I ended up making the switch to join the Oppenheim Group, which is a real estate brokerage here in Hollywood, and just that mental shift alone really opened up so many doors for me, and that was the first time ever where I grossed about $250,000 in commission. And a lot of that shift I really owe to rereading the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, where I got to the point about the Pareto 80-20 principle, which suggests that 80% of your income comes from 20% of your clients. And I gotta say, that was a big wake-up call for me to reevaluate my entire business. I realized that I was spending so much of my time chasing these really tiny deals that made up such a small percentage of my income, where instead, if I just focused on the highest yielding clients and trying to get more of those, I could make more money while having more free time to focus on other things. I decided to cut out most of my business. I would only focus on the high end, and I would only focus on what works the best, which for me at the time was leases on Craigslist over $8,000 a month. I really started to become a lot more diligent and strict about where I spent my time, and that's what finally broke me past that plateau. And then also, of course, in addition to all of that, the rental properties kept going up in value, so that helped out this number as well. But then at 26 years old, I had an amazing year in terms of commissions, and then buying a property that I fixed up, and that took my net worth to $1,150,000. And I'll never forget what it felt like to cross that $1 million net worth mark. I've always diligently tracked everything on Mint.com, so I would go and check it every single week and just see the numbers go up and up and up and up. And then I remember, as soon as it crossed over $1 million, I called up my friends and I asked if they would be interested in going to Happy Hour Sushi that night. So that's what we did. Went to Happy Hour Sushi, and I treated myself to a sushi roll or two, and that's how I celebrate these things. Even now today, anytime I cross a big milestone or anything like this, it's usually rewarded with Happy Hour Sushi, so not much has changed. Anyway, I think my total gross commissions for that year as an agent was about $320,000, and then I used those commissions to go and buy a property in West LA for $800,000 that I then fixed up. Now that was a really significant one for me, and that home purchase meant so much more to me than just going and buying a home, and it was in such a good area in the middle of Los Angeles, just not too far away from Silicon Beach, which those property values had skyrocketed by then. And being able to buy a home like that at 26 years old was something I never thought I would ever be able to do, and then here I was to do it, and so something like that to me was just such a big accomplishment. And of course, as usual, as you would expect, I celebrated closing that one with more Happy Hour Sushi. At the same time as all of that though, the other rental properties were going up in value a lot. The market was really on fire at this point, and everything was going well, and this was really the point for me as a real estate agent where I started to feel a lot more competent in myself and just being able to represent clients. This was also the same year, at the very end of December in 2016, where I posted my very first YouTube video that changed everything. YouTube was always something I had wanted to do, and I was watching YouTube since like 2010, and for me, YouTube was my my form of television because I never watched TV, but I would watch YouTube. So I've always wanted to go and make YouTube videos since back then, but I always felt in the back of my mind, like, who would watch me on YouTube? I'm gonna make a fool of myself. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's not worth it. No one's gonna watch me, so I may as well just not try. But after years of telling myself that I am not cut out for YouTube, that no one would wanna watch me, I just thought, screw it. Let me make a video. I'm gonna post it to YouTube sharing my experience about how I got started in real estate and real estate investing, and then I'm gonna post it because if I don't do it now, I'm never gonna do it. So of course I ended up filming something and then I didn't know how to edit it, so like I looked up iMovie tutorials on YouTube to figure out what I was doing, and then I posted the video. And I swear, like just something immediately clicked for me once I posted the video. I'm like, this is it. I had so much fun. I'm gonna keep doing this. Now by the time I was 27 years old, things really began to pick up quick and my net worth accelerated to $1,750,000. Now this was the best year I've ever had in real estate. In 2017, I did just over $22 million worth of sales as a real estate agent, mostly from clients who started off as lease clients who ended up referring me more business, who ended up giving me more business, who ended up giving me more business. And that just ended up compounding to a really good year, and I think I did about $500,000 in commissions. I also bought a duplex that year and fixed it up, which I documented here on the channel, but I picked it up for $585,000. I fixed it up, and by the time I was done with it, I got it appraised in a cash out refinance at $850,000, leaving me with a $200,000 profit tax-free. At the same time, almost every single night after work, I would get home and work on YouTube videos from 7 p.m. until about 1 a.m. I just had so much fun with everything that I was doing that I was almost disappointed to go to bed because I just wanted it to be the next day already so I can go and get back to work. Like my schedule was pretty much waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning, showing homes until 5 p.m., then going to the gym, eating dinner, and then working on YouTube videos sometimes until about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it wasn't about the money either. I think my entire year of 2017 on YouTube, I made $26,000, which was the equivalent of working a part-time minimum wage job compared to what I was doing as a real estate agent. But I just had so much fun making YouTube videos that I just made it a priority to never miss an upload and always post 3 times a week. By 28 years old, things really began to accelerate and I was able to build up a net worth of $2.5 million. 2018 was the time where I started taking YouTube a lot more seriously because my views were picking up and I just realized, wait a second, maybe I'm onto something here. So I doubled down on YouTube, even though at the time that was making me significantly less than I was earning as a real estate agent. I still worked the exact same hours, so I was ending about 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning almost every single night. So it was a really long day to be able to get everything done. But everything I was doing was just fun and it never felt like work to me, if that makes sense. I just enjoyed it so much and there was nothing else I would rather do. I was also able to go and buy another duplex that year, which is again something I documented here on the channel. And during all of that, all of the property values were still going up significantly. I think all in all that year, I made about $260,000 from YouTube and then about the same as a real estate agent. And that combined with appreciating property and investment values brought me to about $2.5 million. By 29 years old, YouTube just went crazy and my net worth boosted up to about $4 million. 2019 was really the year I started taking YouTube very seriously and I started getting more views than I ever thought was imaginable. And I realized I had a rare window of opportunity that I was not sure I would ever get again in my entire life, so now was my chance to make it happen. So instead of spending 80% of my time in real estate and then 20% of the time on YouTube, I just switched that. I started spending 80% of my time on YouTube and then the remaining 20% on real estate sales. I think people could tell the difference because once I made that shift, the video quality ended up going up dramatically. I had time to create the second channel, I ended up making 2 programs, and I started to run this channel more efficiently. Now at this point, by the end of 2019, YouTube was consistently earning anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000 a month through ad revenue, sponsorships, affiliates, program sales, you name it. I have a whole video breaking down all those details, by the way, in another video. So if you want that, the link is down below in the description if you want to check that out. But of course, as usual, I tried my best to save as much of that as I possibly could. I also used this time to refinance my mortgages because property values went up, interest rates went down. I was able to get more money out of them, save more money on my mortgage, and have more money in the bank to invest with. But the combination of a really high income combined with appreciating property values led to a pretty significant increase in net worth. Now at 30 years old, all of that work and income has compounded into a $6.5 million net worth. This was due to a combination of factors like I completed a renovation on one of my units, I ended up buying another property, the property values of the other 6 places ended up continuing to go up in value, I did a cash out refinance to lower some of my mortgage rates to save even more money, and YouTube income has continued to grow beyond my wildest imagination. I'll do an income breakdown at some point of how much money I make with 2 million subscribers on YouTube, so I can give you all the details, but it's consistently been over $250,000 to $350,000 a month, which is crazy. I know it sounds really hard to believe, like I wouldn't believe it either, but I'll go over all the details in a future video. So if you're not already subscribed, now is a good point where you should probably subscribe, and then when I post that video, you're gonna see it. Now at this point, I really think it's no surprise that YouTube is my largest source of income just because of how massive it is. And even with 6 rental properties, 3 of them being owned outright and a stock market portfolio, I mean, YouTube is just so substantial at this point that everything else pales in comparison. I've never tried to hide that, and I have no idea how long this is going to last for, but I have no intention of stopping, and I'm in it for the long run. This is really one of those opportunities that came along where I knew I had to make the most of it while I could. It's always been a dream of mine to be able to do this and talk about the topics I'm really just genuinely interested in talking about. And I get to nerd out about credit cards, personal finance, and saving money and investing, and I get to feel like I'm making a positive impact in helping people just make personal finance and saving money interesting. So it's really unreal to help grow awareness around those topics and just talk with other people who are as interested in it as I am. But lately, everything has grown way more than I originally anticipated, and I'm just doing my best to navigate it as best as I can. So for that, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching my videos and supporting the channel, because at this point, it's way more than just me. It's each and every one of you that makes this channel what it is and all of this possible. I'm always going to be as open as I can about topics like this and do my best to try to simplify complex financial topics or anything out there investment related that could hopefully make and save you more money. Hopefully that gives you as much value as you give me by watching my videos and smashing the like button for the YouTube algorithm. And if I've learned anything over these last 15 years, it's the importance of saving money, investing consistently, and then whenever you find something that works, stick with it. And also, always operate from a place of integrity. I think people really respect that, and even though it might be slower in the short term, it's going to work out much better in the long run. And also, most importantly, I think it's so important that you enjoy what you do. Just trust me when I say this. There's no way that I would have been able to have worked so many grueling hours if I didn't thoroughly enjoy it. And the fact is, me working these crazy hours was because I enjoyed it. It would be the equivalent of someone going on like a 3-week vacation in Hawaii and being like, ooh, where did all the time go? That felt like it went by in a matter of days. That's how it feels like me with work. I could work like 12 hours straight, and in my mind, I'm just in a zone, and it feels like 2-3 hours went by. And I really believe when that happens and you're in a zone like that, that's when you do the best work. And also, practically, when it comes to making more money, it's essential that you could do something where you could leverage your time. For example, here on YouTube, it takes me the same amount of time to make a video to reach 1 person as it does 1 million people. Same with working as a real estate agent. Looking back, what I should have done is hire someone else underneath me to take on more business, and then I get a percentage of what they make. Kind of like how I first started out, where I was splitting my commissions with another agent. That's something that never really clicked with me until I started doing this, and that's how I was able to increase my income to some very mind-boggling numbers right now. But anyway, I digress. I really